Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Redshirt Chronicles, a review, if you will, of my time at Games Workshop. Both times, actually. So, the last video I did, I had sort of a general overview of the life of a Games Workshop employee. Today, I want to go into a bit more specifics. So, an actual day in the life, what you had to do, the kind of things you were asked to do, all the fun stuff. For both times, and then yeah, just that's pretty much it. Just give you a view of what it was like to be a Games Workshop employee. So at the first store, a typical day, if you had an opening shift, started with you counting the cash, making sure everything was done right the night before, cleaning up, general dusting and cleaning, putting out any new releases that had to go out. Back then, it was a monthly thing instead of weekly. And then, getting out the white dwarf if necessary, just restocking things like your primers, paints, brushes, all that cool stuff. And then you open the store. And that's when the real fun started, because that's when the people started coming in. You got to apply your craft. You got to just have fun. It was especially the first time. I'll say this a million times. The first time through was hilariously fun, especially during this one. There was like a golden period of time where you just had all the right people. Everything flowed really well. We were on top of our game. We were building a hobby like nobody else. We got an award for it, and it was just fantastic. And so there was a few key things. This one was our intro games, our painting lessons, our hobby train building events we put on from time to time. But for things like the intro game, now that was really cool. And you had the 3 F's for that. It had to be fast, fun, and force. So the first 2 are pretty self-explanatory. The game had to be fast and fun. So you wanted, you set them all up so they're really close. You can get casualties right away. You can have stuff happening right away. Force, basically, general rule there is any die roll when you're doing intro game, it's all force. It doesn't matter if you're a space marine, a guardsman, whatever. It was always force, and that went across the board. Whether it was Warhammer 40,000, Warhammer Fantasy, obviously before it changed, and Lord of the Rings, it was always force. It was just easier, and you'd want to be really enthusiastic, and it wasn't hard because they're fun games. You show them to people. I always loved seeing new people just catch on, and go, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" Right? And so you do things like, if I was have to do one now, take Dark Vengeance. I would say to someone, okay, on this side you've got the Space Marines, which are genetically engineered superhumans who protect humanity. And on this side you got the Chaos Space Marines. They're just like those good guys, but they're twisted and bad, and they've fallen to dark gods, right? And of course, you tailor. If it's younger kids, you kind of keep it a little bit more fun, and you kind of stay away from the crazy, chaosy stuff. You do the same for Age of Sigmar, and for the Hobbit now. The painting lessons were awesome too, because it was a great way to build the hobby. Show that these, whether it's young kids, people knew the hobby, or people just want to help, that you could paint really well, and it didn't take very long to do. And I'm not saying I'm an expert painter by any stretch of the imagination. I will never win a golden demon. I will never be the tops in any sort of painting competition. But I paint pretty well, I think. I do a really good tabletop standard, better than the tabletop standard, I think. But that was the fun part, and it was good because you got to know these people, you got to talk to them, you got to build a rapport, and so they come back, and you could just build on that. The other thing you had to do was when someone came in, you have to say, "Oh, hey, how's it going? What brings you in today?" We were always trained to ask open-ended questions. These are questions that you didn't just get a no or a yes, and that was kind of the end of it, as that made it very difficult to kind of build a dialogue with someone. And you had to dig a bit too. You ask also, I see you're looking at the guard. Are you thinking of adding an army or starting a new one? And if they're starting a new one, you could go on the spiel, say, "Oh man, this is the cool stuff. Get this, get this." And all the time in the back of your mind, you got the 10 Commandments. That was I didn't really do it the second time. It wasn't anything I had to review. It was just kind of there. The first time it was a big thing. The 10 Commandments are huge, and basically, I'm not going to go through them because I don't remember half of them anymore. Some of them are pretty easy. You always say hi. There was one about cleanliness, mostly because at that point, even now, you want to be cool, you want to be clean shaven, you want to look good because you're trying to also not just sell stuff to people, not make them want to play the game. You're also trying to break down that stereotype of the unwashed, unkempt, socially awkward basement dweller. Right, and that's one of the things we had to fight, because there are a lot of people, even now as it's gotten bigger and bigger, thanks to things like the internet spreading out further, that still see someone rolling dice, playing a tabletop game, and instantly their mind snaps back to that 1980s view of the lonely, living in your parents' basement, socially awkward, afraid of the sunlight guy, which is just horrible. I mean, you can see by all the different people that even have subscribed. I've watched a lot of their stuff. No one's like that. A lot of them have families like me, so we had to fight that stereotype though. But I digress. And so the other one was, I believe it was, tell them what they need, sell them what they want. So that was part of it. So you'd go in and you'd be like, oh, so you'd ask them, what do you have in your army? You go, oh, say they're playing Imperial Guard or the Astra Militarum now, whatever you want to call it. And be, oh, I've got the command, I've got my platoons, I've got some big guns. And so you'd ask them, what type of armies do you face? What type of armies do your friends have? Like, oh, my friend's got Tyranids or Orcs. You go, okay, well, why don't you go for something like a Hellhound? You have the big, heavy flamer. It's a fast attack choice. It fits in your army. And you try and hopefully get them to buy it that way. And that's what we had to do. And yes, you're trying to make the sales, but part of it for me anyways was actually I was interested in what armies they had and what I could build on with them. Obviously you had your goals. You had to have a certain amount of core sales, which is things like the starter sets and your rule books, and you had to have a certain amount of intros and paint. But and obviously there was the cash totals that you need to make your sales. But we were all at that point really, really enthusiastic, really into it, and we want people to be happy too and build the hobby. If you had a closing shift, when you came in, you would be there to relieve the person that was there before. You'd kind of your shifts across over. You let them have their lunch, do what they need. And at the end of the night, you would close the cash down, make sure everything balanced, clean the store. If you were responsible and you actually gave a damn, some people didn't, you would restock the shelves that night, you'd clean everything up, you'd get the new releases ready, so the next morning the person didn't have to deal with it. I always love doing that because it made the next person's job easier. I like when people did it for me because I could come and go, oh, everything's out, I don't have to worry about it. The second time through, it was a bit different. Being a one-man store, the closing and the opening were pretty much the same. Count the cash. Any new releases go out. Then the next day you put them out. If they're coming out that day, you put them out if they haven't. Refill White Dwarves, refill your paints, brushes, boxes on the shelves, all the cool stuff. The major difference, though, is it was much, much harder to do those intro games, those painting lessons, anything like that. Luckily, they weren't part of there weren't goals on those anymore. It was all just the bottom line sales, but you couldn't do them. It was really, 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 really hard to get someone enthusiastic in a starter game when you had to interrupt them every 2 minutes. It was no longer fast or fun because they were being interrupted because you had to go and talk to this person, go to talk to that person. So it made it more difficult, and it wasn't as fun. Plus, not having an extra person, one of the cool things that one of my coworkers and I used to do, we would bounce fluff and trivia about the games off each other. And it got people sitting at the paint table interested in, and they would join in, and everybody got really excited about it, and it would build up. And so you have these people, not only are they painting the models they've bought, we're not just helping them build the hobby, we're getting interested, we're building up that excitement. So the next time they come in, they're even more excited. They want to get more models. They want to paint more. They want to play more games. They want to build terrain or buy terrain or whatever. It generated that excitement that lasted. It was sort of like an energy refill, if you will, every time they came in. Very hard to do when you're on by yourself. You can talk, but oh, excuse me, guys, I gotta help this person. You kind of ping pong, as they called it, around different people. So it was just far more difficult. And it made it less fun. It was hard to generate that excitement, that interest, when you couldn't talk to people long enough or you kept getting interrupted. Well, I wouldn't say interrupted, but you had to interrupt them or your conversation to go help someone else. So all in all, it's actually pretty basic. There's a lot of it was just talking to people, building the hobby, trying to build a community of people. And we had when we had the store in Bayshore there, at time when it was there was my manager, myself, and a few other really good people. We had a massive community, and we did special things for them. I remember when the Saint Laurent store closed up in Ottawa. It was another store in Ottawa where I live, and it had been created during the Lord of the Rings bubble, when Games Workshop could do no wrong. They were selling miniatures hand over fist. A lot of bad decisions were made. That one was one of them. It was just a badly placed store. It was out of the way inside a giant mall. Eventually, it closed after the Lord of the Rings bubble kind of burst. It closed. It was the Ottawa Battle Bunker. So you actually pay a membership there, go in and play games. It closed down. So my manager had a really brilliant. He said, "Okay, we're going to take our back room, we're going to clear everything out, and we're going to turn it into a battle bunker." Now, this isn't an official one. There was no membership, but we did in order to save that community, because if that store disappeared, it's a pretty long drive between the west end of Ottawa and the east end of Ottawa. And we had a whole bunch of people in the east end who now had to come all the way to the west end. It's a pretty big hike. You're driving through a whole city. So we built this. So he and I built this room. The tables, I should say, and so we could help people retain that community, because that was an important part of it. It seems to be something that's lost now. Games Workshop just thinks it's too big to fail now. I don't know. I'm not trying to be negative on Games Workshop at all. There have been a lot of things they've done recently I haven't agreed with, even when I worked there, although I didn't voice it because, there's a certain attitude you have, and I think I still have that attitude, but just some things I didn't agree with. There seems to be a lot less about that community, although I think they're trying to work on that finally. But all that aside, that was one of the special things we did. We built up that room to help people stay in and play and have more gaming area. And that was sort of stuff you did on a day-to-day basis as a Games Workshop employee. There were other random events, like when Games Day came by, when the Canadian Games Day held in Toronto. We'd have to take models for it. I remember one of the first things I did when I first started working there, I think it was probably an initiation thing too. I had to paint 50 Moria goblins. They're small. That's still a lot of painting, a lot of little detail in those guys. I think I painted them all in like an hour and a half. I remember staring up afterwards, and the world came back to me, and my eyes just went wide. I had to stand up. I got dizzy for a while because I'd just been busy doing this for an hour and a half. But I got them all done that day, and we had to do that another time. And if anybody's curious as to what happened to the Canadian Games Day, that's something that you may want to email me about for a Q&A. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. Yeah, see? That's the kind of question, yes, because there's some pretty weird stuff happened with that. But I'll get to that in the Q&A if someone sends me it. I don't know. Anyways, that's the type of stuff we had to do. Basically, that was it. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. The first time through second time, you're kind of on your own. You sort of went nuts. But that was the day-to-day life of a Games Workshop employee. There's other stuff I'll delve into in other episodes, but that's it for now. So if you guys have any questions or comments, as usual, either put them in the comments section below or email them to whotookmydice1@gmail.com. And just until next time, keep rolling dice, have fun, and we'll see you later.